All right, sweethearts. Happy to be here. And I think I'm going to do the same as usual. Morning, blessing our speech. Okay, Matt. Blessing the speech. So let's just think. Just the 30 minutes, going like 1 second. It'll go so quickly. We know that. We're going to do this little meditation, thinking about the benefit of thinking about why it's important to have good speech. I mean, something that would never occur to us in our ordinary world. It sounds so peculiar, doesn't it? So odd to think of your speech is important. I mean, but the reason is so we can benefit people. It's so clear. So for this 30 minutes, we're going to do something like that, so we can become beneficial to sentient beings, so we can control our speech and use it wisely, so that every word we say can be of benefit. This is the point, They talk about the power of speech. This is the main gift of the Buddha, because it's advice. So think in your own life, If someone doesn't believe your words, you can't do a thing. If someone doesn't like your words, if someone thinks you're being harsh when you're not, if someone doesn't pay attention because they think you're so boring, I mean, we can do nothing. We are totally useless. So even just to live our lives, we need speech that's useful. Just to buy something in a shop, to ask somebody for something, it's obviously so powerful. And of course, this first level of practice, the very first level of the Lam Rim, like junior school, control the body and control the speech. And our problem isn't usually the body. We don't go around killing and raping too many people, but our speech is the problem. So we want to make it powerful. And so there's different ways. One is to be silent, just to shut up, be quiet, just do not talk. Perfect. But consciously, not passive aggressively. The other one is to not consciously not lie. And that even means don't speculate. I think we don't mean to lie, but we're so eager to be right. We're so eager to be seen to be right. We'll blurt out anything out of our mouth. And because everybody on the planet gives opinions, but we mislead people. We don't even know if we're correct. This is the worst one. It's not really a lie because you don't intend to, but it's words that aren't true because we're never sure if we're right. This is so incredibly important. So by not speculating, by not lying, by not using harsh language, abusing people, and by not just rubbish speech, just pouring out your mouth, not talking bad things behind backs. These are the ways to control your speech and therefore to purify it and therefore to make it more powerful. So the other way is things like this. Saying mantra, just saying mantra alone, even saying positive words, you think about it. And the logic of it is very powerful when you understand the Vajrayana way we're constructed. We have this subtle body, which is made up of these 72,000 subtle channels, like a subtle nervous system. And coursing throughout those channels are all these different wind energies, prana. It's the physical makeup of the universe, the subtler level. So this wind energy is sound. This is what they say in the Vajrayana. It is sound. And the purest sound is said to be these Sanskrit sounds, the letters that make up the words, the syllables. So this is practice, so delicious, so powerful. The meaning behind it, to purify speech, to be of benefit. But just by saying these sounds, that immediately purifies the wind. And then the wind, because the wind, this is the point now, I forgot this, that within those channels, all of our different states, our mental states, all our delusions, all our virtuous states of mind, they are inextricably linked to their own wind energies. They're inextricably linked. So every time you say a word, so in this case, a Sanskrit sound, purifies the physical, the wind, which then in turn karmically causes healthy bodies, no sickness, even in turn eventually impacts upon the external environment, and then we'll be reborn in environments that are healthy and balanced and beautiful. But also purifies our mind, because the wind and the mind are inextricably linked. So this saying mantras is a powerful way to purify our body and our mind. It's so delicious. So let's have the little refuge, start with a little refuge prayer mat. And then you can just concentrate and then open your eyes. If you haven't memorized the syllables, you can read them. So just this sweet little refuge prayer. Visualize Buddha above your head. Konshog, Sumla, Kyabsuchi, Drola Penshir, Sange Shog, Konshog, Sumla, Kyabsuchi, Drola Penshir, Sange Shog, Konshog, Sumla, Kyabsuchi, Drola Penshir, Sange Shog. So now we imagine, we visualize, we think. On your tongue is the syllable R. You know, if you know the Sanskrit, fine. If not, just AH. And then this turns into a moon disc, like a flat white cushion on your tongue. And on top of that, there's a white Om standing upright. And that's surrounded by the white vowels. Of course, we haven't memorized the Sanskrit or the Tibetan, that's fine. Just imagine, they're all standing upright, going clockwise around the white Om. And then you visualize all standing upright, the red consonants going counterclockwise. And then the syllables of this dependent-related heart mantra, what Rinpoche calls the, what people might say the mantra of dependent arising, the blue, kind of darkish blue, standing upright, going clockwise. So all this on your tongue, all these letters, white, red, blue. So now, just like we do when we visualize the Buddha, this is our visualization, but now we invite, in the case of the Buddha, we invite all the wisdom beings to come and absorb in. So here we invite all the energy. We send from the blue hong, light beams go out to all the 10 directions, hooking the power of speech, the powerful energy of the speech of all the Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas, all the yogis, all the holy beings, all the Arya Bodhisattvas, and anybody who just has good speech, anybody who's practicing virtue. Because by practicing virtue, just by being good, by not being deluded, by being virtuous, you purify your body and you purify your mind, the winds and the mind. So all the energy of all this holy speech, powerful speech, blessed speech, as Rinpoche says, it's all the bodhisattvas and those living in the 3 pure bhumis and the arhats. There's the power of speech of all those who are engaged in the path, and all the sages who have achieved the power of words, who have actualized the words of truth, who have great power in their speech. And so due to the power of abiding in silence, of living in the morality, of abstaining from the negative karma of speech, the words of these sages have so much power. Whatever they want, whatever they wish, it brings success. All the blessing powers of their holy speech for those who are beyond samsara and those who are not beyond are hooked in the aspect of all. So when you just imagine hooked in this, it says this energy, this aspect of all the different things, but never mind, just all this energy is hooked and it comes back with that blue light and absorbs into our tongue. Making all the syllables so powerful, so radiant. So now we're going to recite the vowels. And as we do so, white nectar pours down from the white vowels on our tongue, filling us completely, top and bottom, totally filling us, in particular, purifying, of course, all the speech, but here purifying the body, purifying all the actions we've ever done since beginningless time with our bodies to harm sentient beings. Thinking like this. And also all the vows we've broken with our bodies since beginningless time, broken our samaya. Think of all these karmic imprints, which are in our mind from having done these actions. They're sitting there latent, waiting to ripen as our future suffering. And of course, we don't want that. So imagine all these karmic imprints completely annihilated since beginningless time, all the imprints in the mind, the tendencies in the mind, eliminated, annihilated by this radiant white nectar, filling us completely as we recite. Om a a I u ri ri li li e o ao ang a swaha. Om a I u ri ri li li e o ao ang a swaha. Om a I u ri ri li li e o ao ang a swaha. Totally full of this white nectar, completely purifying all the nonsense, all the actions, all the harm we've ever done since beginning this time to harm sentient beings and to break our samaya. Totally purified, be so delighted. Radiant white nectar filling us. So now, as we recite the consonants, the red nectar pours down from these consonants, filling us completely, and this time purifying our speech itself, and particularly purifying also all the karmic imprints left in the mind, the tendencies, the programming. It's all the programming in the mind. They use the analogy of seeds, but you also use the analogy of programming. Buddha would have liked that. All the programming, the tendencies in the mind, that the mind runs to because we're so familiar with it. All these tendencies, these karmic imprints from the harm we've done with our speech, since beginning of this time. Of course, as humans, we're the clever ones. All of this annihilated, totally annihilated by this radiant red nectar filling us. Om ka 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 ganga cha 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 janya ta 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 dana ta 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 dana pa pa ba ba ma yada lava shasha sa haksa svaha. Om ka 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 ganga cha 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 janya ta 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 dana ta 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 dana pa pa ba ba ma yada lava shasha sa haksa svaha. Om ka 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 ganga cha 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 janya ta 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 dana ta 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 dana pa pa ba ba ma yada lava shasa sa haksa svaha. Totally full of this blissful red nectar. Power, all that speech purified, all the tendencies purified. So now the blue nectar comes from the syllables of the dependent-related heart mantra. Of course, this purifies our mind, the source of all the problem, the ego grasping, the root delusion that believes in this intrinsic me, that's the one that underpins all the others, this primordial assumption, so deep we can't even see it. Try to see it, and it's impossible, so subtle, so subtle. This grasping of an intrinsic me and intrinsic everything else. Things having a nature, especially believing there's an I there that is separate from the, that isn't imputed by the mind. Everything like that. We believe everything is in the thing itself. We see a cake and we think cakeness comes from the cake. We totally believe that. That's what it means, We think the cakeness comes from the cake. And I'm this kind of innocent bystander observing it. That's the dualistic way that this ignorance causes us to be. Like this isolated observer of these things out there, as if they have nothing to do with my mind. But what's out there is a reflection of what's in my mind. This is what's so outrageous. So purify the lie that things are existing out there. from their own side without depending on my mind. Annihilate that lie. And then in relation to the self, we annihilate the next lie, which comes from this ridiculous nonsense, which is the attachment, this craving, this emotional hunger, this bottomless pit of emotional hunger to get what that supposed I wants. Because there's always a feeling of being bereft and missing. This attachment, multifaceted. So fragile, like a delicate child that can't stand anything but what I want. Only wants what I want. And the moment something comes along what is not what I want, panic attack, aversion, freak out, anger, frustration, annoyed, irritated, upset, despair, depression, all of that. And then all the other rubbish, all the other 83,997 loads of nonsense, all based in these three. All of this annihilated, just instantly removed by this blissful blue nectar filling us. Imagine. As we say, this amazing, wonderful syllables, which are dependent on arising, which is with the main logic, the king of logics, to prove the truth that there is no intrinsic I. So imagine all these nonsense delusions annihilated by these marvelous syllables. Om yedama hetu prabhava hetun teshan tatagato ievadat teshan chayo niroda evam vadi mahashamana yesvaha. Om yedama hetu prabhava hetun teshan tatagato ievadat teshan chayo niroda evam vadi mahashamana yesvaha. Om yedama hetum prabhava hetun teshan tatagato yevadat teshan chayo niroda evam vadimaha shramana yesvaha. Maybe that was only two. I can't remember another one. Bonus anyway. Om yedama hetu prabhava hetun teshan tatagato yevadat teshan chayo niroda evam vadimaha shramana yesvaha. Full of this radiant blue nectar, annihilating all the delusions, all the nonsense, all the fabrications, all the made-up stories, all the rubbish, which are rooted in nonsense and are rooted in fear. So now imagine fear has gone. We're now blissful, radiant, joyful. How incredible. So now visualize, imagine that these blue syllables dissolve into the red ones. And the red ones dissolve into the white ones. And then they dissolve into the Om, the white Om. And then that dissolves into the moon disk. And now the moon disk turns into an R. And that turns into pink-colored nectar, which dissolves into your tongue. And your tongue becomes of Vajra nature, indestructible. Whatever you say, is powerful, appropriate, useful, beneficial. Whoever hears you, the ants, the birds, the spirits, the neighbors, they're benefited by that speech. Can you imagine that? The speech is perfect, even just saying hello, even your laugh. It's a sound, isn't it? So it'll benefit others. Can you imagine? Whatever you say will be beneficial. And whatever you say, you'll be achieved. If you have to get things done and boss the world around, they'll do what you want, I promise. We need this. Bodhisattvas need power. Don't think Bodhisattvas and Buddhas are these little wimpy people who sit quietly. No, They benefit the world. They leave an impact. They need this to benefit others. We need this to benefit others. So imagine the power of your speech. Incredible. Think God perfected my speech. The minute sentient beings hear you, especially, it pacifies their emotional problems. Can you imagine? Just one kind word can help a person calm down. Amazing. So then your speech becomes marvelous, and all your recitations, your mantras become even more powerful, more powerful. Incredible. So now, still a bit of Mahamudra. And all that means, we're keeping it simple. It's actually an advanced technique, but we keep it simple. We can try it. It simply means paying attention, focusing on the thoughts, on the mind, whatever's there. And as your mind gets more subtle, then eventually the object of your concentration becomes what they call the clarity of your mind, which is quite a subtle thing. It's the kind of the unphysical, the non-physical nature of your mind. As His Holiness says, we can talk about the mind extensively, but to actually experience your own mind is quite subtle. But we start with what's there. We start simply paying attention to whatever pops up in your mind. Sort of have a feeling of being separate, and you're just watching. No commentary. Don't get involved in the thoughts, which is what we do all the time. Just watch, pay attention. That's it. And then we'll do a second bit before we finish. This is the first bit. Just pay attention. Your mind, when you start absorbing into the thoughts or forgetting what you're doing, just bring your mind back to just watching. Keep your attention sharp and alert. Just watch. And now, continue to watch. That does never changes. But now what we're going to do, as Panchen Lama in the text says, a subtle wisdom. Just do your best here. Is going to be like a little fish moving through water without disturbing it. So your mind is pretty clear. Try to imagine it's clear. You're watching the thoughts, but this little part of your mind, like watching out of the corner of your eye. Put it like that. And is watching is to check how the I appears to us. Lama Yeshe calls it your mindfulness fish. So keep the main part of your mind is just watching. That never changes. But this tiny part out of the corner of your eye, just checking to see if you can see how the I appears to you. Do your best. Stay focused on those thoughts. This tiny part, just watching, checking. I mean, yes, she says it's, but the eye is like a thief. You think you see it, you try to look and then it's disappeared. It's very subtle, very tricky. So relax, and then we can just do this little sweet little dedication prayer. I can't get over this prayer. Who would ever have thought you'd say words like this? It's so cute. I can't get over it. I love it. So we think. So we just delight. Here we've been. These few minutes have gone like a second, haven't they? It's been 30 whole minutes. This wishing to purify our speech, this visualizing purifying our speech, saying these powerful mantras which do purify the speech, because speech, actual sound is mantra. The wind is mantra. Purest sound of all. So they say. And this little meditation trying to find the I, using our 30 minutes well. So now may my tongue have all the courage of the once gone to bliss, by the power manifesting from these glorified words. May all sentient beings be subdued, and whatever words I say, may all these actions be accomplished instantly. Jangchob semcho grimpoche, ma ke panam ke guchin, ke panyampa me payang gong ne gondu, pavashok, gewadi nyudodag, lama sange drubyone, drowa chikyang malupa, deyi sala gapasho. Okay, sweethearts, that's it. Thank you, darlings. Everybody, much love. Everybody.
Thank you
See
very
you
much.